The next day, we see one of the witches collecting insects in the forest. Suddenly, the voice of a boy catches her attention, and she starts walking toward it. The sound is asking for help. The witch approaches the boy, but it turns out to be a doll scarecrow, and there is a gramophone nearby making the sound. As the witch is inspecting the device, Hansel and Gretel come from behind and catch her. But she doesn't go down quietly and fights both of them. She picks up her broomstick and starts flying through the woods. Hansel throws a grapple at the broomstick, and now the witch drags him with her. Hansel uses trees as leverage and stops the broomstick, causing the witch to go flying and hit a tree. She's about to use her magic, but another man knocks her out with a taser. Hansel and Gretel plan to interrogate the witch. Meanwhile, Muriel's assistant can see the witch hunters through the eyes of the other witch, and she tells Muriel that Gretel is in the town. During the interrogation, the witch reveals that the blood of the 12 moons will be collected. Gretel realizes that the 12 moons is a reference to the abducted children, and so far, 11 children have been abducted. The witches need one more, and they are looking for a particular girl born in April. Meanwhile, above the skies of Augsburg, Muriel and her army arrive on their broomsticks. She throws a fireball at the houses. The Red Witch arrives at a family's door and uses her magic to harm the girl's mother. She then orders the giant to take the girl to the dark forest. Muriel arrives at the sheriff's office and comes face to face with Gretel. Muriel is very fast and takes down their assistant, then goes after Gretel. Hansel goes after the giant but gets interrupted by the Red Witch. Hansel fights her back with milk bottles. After getting hit, the Red Witch jumps on the broomstick and tries to fly, but Hansel grabs onto the end and flies with her. Muriel tells Gretel that she will not harm her now because she needs a final ingredient from her to complete the moon event, and throws her outside. Benjamin rescues Gretel and takes her home. Meanwhile, Hansel is still flying with the Red Witch. She suddenly turns around and pushes him off, and he falls in the middle of the forest. The sheriff blames the hunters for the situation, overthrows the current mayor, and becomes mayor himself. In Benjamin's book, Gretel sees a picture of a woman who looks very similar to her mother, who was accused of doing witchcraft, but nobody found any proof. In the forest, Hansel is found by the woman they rescued earlier. She cleans him up and they both take a bath in the healing waters. While looking for Hansel in the forest, Gretel comes across the sheriff and his men. They attack her, but she gets rescued by the troll who takes her with him. He helps her with the wounds and gives her water. When Gretel asks him why he helped her, he replies that trolls serve witches. He tells Gretel that his name is Edward, and goes away. Meanwhile, Hansel arrives at a house at the end of the forest. After making sure the house is empty, he goes inside. Suddenly, somebody pushes him from behind and they both fall through the floor. We now see that it's Gretel who pushed him. After seeing Gretel's injuries, Hansel apologizes for not being there to protect her. They explore the place, and it looks like a prayer place. After climbing up to the floor, Hansel finds a toy familiar to him. He tells Gretel that this is their old family house where they grew up. They both come to a conclusion that their mother might be a witch, and that's why the witch's magic doesn't work on them. Suddenly, the door opens and Muriel arrives there. Muriel says that she remembers their mother, who was a great white witch named Adriana, who fell in love with a local farmer. Muriel reveals that in order to become immune to fire, they needed to make a potion using the heart of a grand white witch as an ingredient. But Adriana was way too powerful for Muriel, and that's why she spread a rumor that Adriana was doing black magic. Adriana knew that the town would come after the family, and that's why she asked her husband to take them to the forest. A white witch never uses her powers against humans, but the town people burn Adriana anyway. Hansel fights Muriel, but she overpowers him, throws him into the hole in the ground, and abducts Gretel. The next day, Hansel wakes up with Mina helping him, and his wound is healed. Hansel realizes that Mina is also a witch. Mina explains to him that she is a good white witch, and that's why her healing spell works on him and spells from dark witches don't. Hansel wants to go and look for his sister. Mina tells him about a place deep in the forest where dark witches gather. There will be many witches there, so Mina doesn't want Hansel to go without preparing. In the cave, she found a grimoire from Hansel's mother that contains a spell that penetrates a dark witch's magic, and their wands won't be able to protect them. Mina uses it to craft a potion and sprinkle it over the weapons Hansel will use. Hansel, Mina, and Benjamin start their journey towards the dark forest. Meanwhile, in captivity, Gretel meets with Edward and asks for his help. Hansel and Mina prepare traps throughout the forest. He tells Benjamin to wait there and shoot any witch that escapes. Meanwhile, witches from all the nearby areas are gathering in the dark forest for the blood moon event. Gretel is tied to a stone and Muriel initiates the ritual. Hansel and Mina are hiding nearby and waiting for the right moment. The blood moon appears in the sky, and now it's time for the sacrifice. Suddenly, Hansel fires around and draws their attention. He asks the witches to let his sister and the children go, and he will spare them. Muriel sends the Red Witch to fight Hansel. Hansel fires around and the witch gets hurt. This shocks the gathered witches. At the same time, Mina pulls up the Gatling gun and starts firing at the witches. Since the weapons are blessed, the witches' magic cannot stop them. Suddenly, the gun jams and this allows Muriel and her assistant to continue the blood moon ritual. Muriel approaches Gretel to get her heart, but Edward strikes Muriel out of the way. He then tries to free Gretel. Muriel uses her magic to push Edward off the cliff. Gretel becomes free and fights with Muriel. Hansel frees the children and the blood moon night is about to end. Muriel spots the rising sun and realizes that the ritual has failed. She tries to run away from there. All the remaining witches follow her, and they get hit by the traps placed earlier. Benjamin sees Muriel flying and fires at her. Muriel falls from the broomstick and hides in the forest. Meanwhile, Gretel finds Edward lying on the ground. She uses an electric device to resuscitate him. While looking for Muriel, they arrive at the house made of candy, where Hansel and Gretel defeat the witch's children. Muriel comes from behind, fires a spell at Mina, and captures Benjamin. Hansel drops his shotgun but fires from his secondary. However, Muriel is very quick and throws a tree trunk at him. Muriel says that Hansel's end is near. Suddenly, Mina wakes up and fires a spell at Muriel, but she is not powerful enough to defeat Muriel. Hansel picks up the gun and fires multiple rounds at Muriel, sending her flying inside the house. Due to her injuries, Mina dies. Hansel goes inside and Muriel is waiting for him. Gretel arrives there, and she too is surprised to see the old candy house. She joins the fight with Hansel. But Muriel is very quick. Hansel strikes her in the head, pulls her up using a chain, and gives her several gut punches. Muriel turns into her human form to trick him but fails. Hansel has a medical condition where he needs to inject medicine every few hours and he didn't do it last time. Because of this, he starts to faint. Gretel crawls to grab the syringe and injects Hansel. Muriel uses this opportunity to free herself and comes after them. But Hansel quickly hits her with a shovel and knocks her out. They use the shovel to decapitate her head. Gretel picks up Muriel's wand and absorbs its power. The witch hunters continue to hunt witches all over the nearby lands. And they are only going after the ones practicing dark magic, not the good ones. They arrive at the lair of a desert witch, and Gretel starts firing.